Hey guys, welcome to part two. I'm definitely going to try to wrap this thing up in either this one or definitely absolutely by the third one. I really am. Again, a connecting theme, but a different topic. I received some nice, sweet, sincere private messages in my inbox from women who had watched some of my videos, and they were kind of talking a little bit about their relationships that they were having. And they were sweet and kind enough to share their stories with me. I'm not getting ready to talk about, oh, Lily from Tacoma, Washington said, no, I don't do that. That's gossiping. That's spreading somebody else's personal business. That's not what I do. But I will kind of talk a little bit about my story because I think that when we go through breakups or when we go through, life situations that are very heart-hardening, we tend to think that we're the only ones that are experiencing that. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about something that I went through. And I believe the testimony, and we all have testimony, we all have different testimonies, but nonetheless, we all have testimony. I believe that our testimonies actually help other individuals to see things from a different perspective and know that your situation is not unique. You're not the only person that went through it. And a lot of times we feel that way because God knows that I felt that way a lot of times. With that being said, I was in a relationship for 8 years. And I was in love with this man. I thought this man had hung the moon. Do you hear me? He had hung the moon. I loved him. I was in love with him. The only thing I wanted to do was exist for him. I loved him just that much. Now again, I had this relationship when I was young. It was started when I was young. And so a lot of the relationship I was trying to find myself, even though he was older than I was, he was still searching for himself too. So a lot of mistakes were made along the way. And, I'm not going to put the blame solely on him because it wasn't all him to blame. But it was a lot of him to blame, but it wasn't all of him to blame because I had done some really messed up stuff too. But anyway, the relationship ended after 8 years. And the reason it ended, it was because of two things. My sister had told me one time, because I was explaining to her what I was going through. I was telling her, on the phone, crying with her about what he had done. And she told me, she says, you know what? He's going to continue to do the same thing that he always does because you don't have any boundaries. You will let him do whatever he wants to do, and each and every time he messes up and he does something wrong, you take him back. So therefore, why should he straighten up? Because you're always going to be there. Why should he act right? You're always going to be right there. I don't talk to this sister at all anymore. And that was probably the only thing that this woman ever said to me out of all the years I have known her that was actually intelligent and made sense. And it did. Because I then went to the Lord in prayer, and God is so funny because he listens to us. You think he don't listen, he listens to us. And I had gone to the Lord in prayer, and I said, okay, I got to develop some boundaries, Jesus, da 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 da. And so I had a conversation with him, and I told him, I said, there are three things, there are three things that if you ever do any of these three things, we will not be together. One of them was to marry somebody else. The second was to have a baby with someone else. And the third one was to move in with someone else. And I told him, I said, if any of these three things ever happen, there will be no more us. We will not have anything else to do with one another. And so he was like, oh, I would never do that, blah, 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 blah. Fine, and I'm buying it all. Anyway, shortly after that, he does what, ladies? He does one of those three things. and he thought that I would never ever find out about it. And it's possible that I may not have ever found out about it. Obviously it wasn't the marriage thing, but I'm not going to get into which one of the other two it was, but he did that and he thought that I would never know. But when I found out about it, it was very devastating to me. I did not want to go on. I did not want to live. I didn't want to do anything. I was just so completely devastated. So I came home, and even when I think about it to this day, I'm not even sure how I made it home. I know I drove home, but I don't remember the drive home because I was blinded by tears and rage and everything else. And I made it home, thank God. And the first thing I did was I called, at the time it was Ameritech. I changed every telephone number I had. I changed my office number. I changed my home number. I changed my email address. I changed my cell number. I changed every number I had. Hell, if I could, I would have changed my house number. But couldn't do that. But I did that because I knew that if I would have heard his voice on the other end of that line, or if he would have had some contact with me, and he probably was going to have, that I would have been weak and would have been like, okay, we can work this out. And that's not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to stand my ground because I knew that I had to protect me. And also I knew that God was trying to tell me something, because God heard me when I told this man, I'll be with you as long as you don't do one of these three things. God was listening. He was listening in on that conversation, and he heard me. And so I knew that there was something happening. There was something evolving in me, but I was too sad, depressed, tired, and lonely to actually try to figure out what it was. So therefore, I'm sitting there trying to say, I don't know what's going to happen to me now because the man I love is gone. Yeah, that's what I did that. I did that for months. I actually did it for years. And then I went back to my Bible. I have a Bible here. And, oops, I dropped something. This is my trusty Bible. See how raggedy it is? It's raggedy. But this is I got a couple of Bibles. Quite a few Bibles, actually. But this is the one that I read from the most and have highlighted and everything else up in it. But I went back to something my mom taught me when I was a little girl. She told me that if you ever wanted to talk to God about something, even though the Lord can interpret your moans, but if you ever really wanted to talk to him about something, that you should write it down. And I'm not going to read you this, but I wrote a letter. And this is an old letter. And this letter was about what I wanted in a husband, what I wanted in a mate, what I wanted in a partner. And I still have it. I have every letter that I've ever written in my Bible. And I thought about that. And I thought about him. And at the time, it's still not making any sense to me, because all I knew is that I wanted him. To heck with, what I had written down, and what I had, written down that it was imperative for me to have in my, prospective mate, prospective husband, or whatever. It didn't matter, because I wanted him.